right, so the Premier League has released the nominees for the Coach of the Year award. Quite interesting, talking about that category. We've seen so many great coaches never win it. We've seen some good coaches also have great seasons and end up winning it. So Ferguson has won the most Premier League Coach of the Year awards. It's not surprising because he won the Premier League 13 times. But, in the 2024-2025 season, after Liverpool were crowned champions for the 20th time in their history, we are looking at which other coaches aside Arne Slot, because obviously any coach at all that leads a team to Premier League success will definitely have their name in there, at least to win the accolade. But then which other coaches also have impressed a lot with their teams? Yeah, I can mention Eddie Howe. He's been great with Newcastle. But then aside Eddie Howe, which other coaches? I wouldn't go for Pep Guardiola. But before we delve deeper into the nominees, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and then also hit on the notification button. So welcome back. Now let's take a look at the 5 coaches vying to win the Premier League Coach of the Year award. So obviously, like I mentioned, Arne Slot winning the Premier League with Liverpool in their very first his very first season in charge. So after Jurgen Klopp had recommended Arne Slot to Liverpool, some fans were asking, "Who is this guy? We don't even know him." Yeah, he's bowed just like Pep, but then no one actually knew how good he was tactically. Now he comes in, and all of a sudden, boom, he leads Liverpool to their first Premier League title in just 5 years since Jurgen Klopp won it for them in the COVID season. Now, the other nominees on the short list, you have Nuno Espírito Santo. Now, I think it's fair to see Nuno Espírito Santo, on the list, considering what he's done with Nottingham Forest this season. This guy has been phenomenal for Nottingham Forest, especially looking at the fact that they started the season, at the back of another season where they struggled for larger parts, and everyone was thinking Nottingham Forest were one of the candidates to be relegated, especially under English manager Steve Cooper. But then they were able to turn the tables around, they turned the tides around, and all of a sudden Nottingham Forest have booked a place in Europe. So regardless of what happens in the league, they are still going to play in any of Europe's 3 club competitions. It's either the UEFA Champions League, which is still possible, or the Europa League, or even the UEFA Conference League. That's quite some achievement, from Nuno Espírito Santo. He's not the only one in there. I mentioned Eddie Howe. Yes, Eddie Howe is also making the cut for Premier League Coach of the Year. Now, what has he done for Newcastle that warrants him to be on this list? So, he led Newcastle United to their very first major trophy in over 70 years. That's 7 decades. Just 30 years shy of a century. That's quite a long time. And he's been great for them. He's the guy who is also leading Newcastle this season to UEFA Champions League football, which is quite possible. Of course, Newcastle could be playing UEFA Champions League football just next season. That's dependent on, how the games will go. But then he still had a phenomenal season nonetheless. Then Brentford's Thomas Frank also in there. This is quite an unassuming manager. You barely hear him talk, but then this guy does so much great stuff. So Brentford are also playing some exciting football. This season, they've made a GTEC Community Stadium a fortress for themselves. And there's one brain behind the success of the London team. And it's Thomas Frank, who has done so much for them. And then also last on the list is Vítor Pereira, the manager of Wolverhampton Wanderers. So he came in when Wolverhampton Wanderers were battling relegation at the early stages of the season. And guess where they are now? They are climbing and they are almost into the top half of the Premier League table. It tells you how this man has been able to turn their fortunes around and why he deserves that recognition and even the shout to mention the Premier League or to win the Premier League Coach of the Year award. So 5 coaches vied for one prestigious award, the Coach of the Year award in the Premier League. There's Thomas Frank, there's Arne Slot, there's Eddie Howe, there's Vítor Pereira, and then also Nottingham Forest, Nuno Espírito Santo. Which of these 5 coaches do you think deserves the award? And tell us why you think they should be crowned the Coach of the Year.